Before you continue, take a deep breath and clear your mind, because what you're about to hear is not something people usually say to men. This message isn't about motivating you for a day, it's about shaking you awake. If you're tired of pretending everything is fine, if you're carrying battles no one knows about, then these next few minutes might just be the most honest truth anyone has spoken to you in a long time. Emotional exhaustion in men is far more common than society acknowledges, yet it is one of the least discussed experiences. From a young age, men are conditioned to prioritize strength over emotional expression. They grow up absorbing messages like "don't cry," "handle it like a man," and "be strong," which slowly trains them to silence their emotional needs. As life progresses, this internalized scripting becomes a cage. Men learn to tolerate stress, pressure, and emotional burdens far beyond what is healthy, often without even realizing how deeply tired they've become inside. Emotional exhaustion doesn't arrive suddenly, it builds quietly, day by day, in the moments when a man forces himself to keep going even when his body and mind are begging for rest. Recognizing emotional exhaustion is crucial because the signs are subtle. It often begins with reduced patience, feeling irritated over small things, or waking up tired despite a full night's sleep. Next, there's a heavy mental fog, difficulty remembering, concentrating, or making decisions. But the most dangerous sign is detachment. Men experiencing emotional exhaustion can feel like they're watching their own life from a distance. They participate in conversations without feeling connected, spend time with loved ones without feeling present, and work tirelessly without feeling any sense of accomplishment. This detachment isn't coldness, it is the body's last resort to protect itself from overload. When men don't recognize this stage, they push themselves harder, believing that more effort will fix their struggles. Instead, it drains their emotional reserves even further. Another critical aspect is that emotional exhaustion disguises itself as physical tiredness. A man might assume he just needs more sleep or that he's stressed because of work. But emotional exhaustion is not solved by rest alone. It requires awareness, acknowledging that the issue is not just the workload, but the emotional strain that has been ignored. Men often misinterpret their symptoms because society has never encouraged them to reflect inwardly. They associate exhaustion with physical labor, not emotional depletion. As a result, they keep moving, doing, providing, fixing, and performing, unaware that they are slowly burning out from the inside. One of the reasons emotional exhaustion in men goes unnoticed is because they tend to normalize suffering. They convince themselves that life is supposed to feel this way, that stress is unavoidable, and that their responsibility is to endure it silently. This mindset prevents them from identifying when they've reached their emotional limit. Many men don't even have the vocabulary to describe their internal state. They might say, "I'm fine, I'm just tired," or "it's nothing," when in reality they are carrying emotional weights that haven't been processed or released for years. Recognizing emotional exhaustion is also essential because it affects every area of a man's life. It distorts his relationships, lowering his capacity for connection, affection, and patience. It impacts his work, making tasks that were once manageable feel overwhelming. It affects decision-making, often leading to impulsive choices or emotional withdrawal. Many conflicts in relationships stem not from a lack of love, but from unrecognized emotional exhaustion that leaves a man with no emotional energy to give. When exhaustion goes unaddressed, men can become distant, irritable, or numb, not because they don't care, but because they are depleted. To recognize emotional exhaustion, men must become aware of their inner world. This means paying attention to emotional signals rather than dismissing them. It requires admitting when something feels too heavy or when pressure becomes too much. It involves acknowledging that emotional needs are real, valid, and deserving of attention. Emotional exhaustion is not a flaw, not a weakness, and not something to hide. It is a sign that the mind and heart have been carrying too much for too long without relief or support. If you want, I can expand other keynotes into 600 words each as well. For many men, strength has been defined in a way that leaves no room for emotional expression. From childhood, they receive a specific version of masculinity that equates emotions with weakness. Generations of conditioning lead men to believe that if they openly express sadness, fear, hurt, or even self-doubt, they are compromising their identity. This belief becomes deeply rooted and follows them into adulthood, influencing how they behave in relationships, how they handle stress, and how they confront personal struggles. Because of this conditioning, many men grow up confusing emotional suppression with emotional strength, not realizing that the two are entirely different. True strength requires awareness and courage, while suppression only leads to internal chaos disguised as control. The difference between strength and suppression lies in intention. Suppression is an avoidance mechanism. It is the act of pushing emotions down, ignoring them, or pretending they don't exist. When a man suppresses his feelings, he is not controlling them, he is burying them. These buried emotions do not disappear. They simply stay hidden until they surface in ways that are harder to manage, often through anger, irritability, or emotional shutdown. Suppression creates a pressure cooker inside the mind, building stress until it affects mental clarity, sleep, relationships, and overall well-being. Many men walk around carrying emotional pressure they do not even recognize because they mistake the numbness or detachment that comes with suppression for strength. On the other hand, real strength requires facing emotions instead of running from them. It means acknowledging when something hurts, when something feels unfair, or when a situation becomes overwhelming. It means understanding that emotions are signals, not threats. Strength does not mean acting as if nothing bothers you. It means dealing with what bothers you before it becomes destructive. A man who practices emotional strength allows himself to reflect, to identify what he feels, and to respond with clarity rather than impulsiveness. This type of strength leads to emotional maturity, stability, and self-respect because it is grounded in honesty, not denial. Many men confuse being quiet with being strong. Silence does not always equal control. Sometimes silence is simply exhaustion. Sometimes it is fear of judgment, worry about appearing weak, or uncertainty about how to express what's inside. When men suppress their emotions, they unintentionally create emotional distance with the people around them. They become harder to understand, and their loved ones may feel shut out or disconnected. Suppression often turns into emotional walls, making it difficult to maintain healthy communication. Over time, this can affect relationships deeply, not because the man lacks love, but because he has never been taught how to express what he genuinely feels. Another key difference between strength and suppression is the long-term impact. Suppression drains a man's emotional and mental resources. It increases stress, creates internal conflict, and can lead to emotional numbness or burnout. This exhaustion then affects behavior. Small issues feel bigger, minor frustrations trigger stronger reactions, and simple conversations feel overwhelming. Suppression also affects physical health, contributing to tension, headaches, fatigue, and sleep disturbances. Men often don't realize that their physical discomfort is connected to emotions they have refused to process. Strength, however, has the opposite effect. When men acknowledge and process their feelings, they reduce internal stress and create space for clarity, patience, and emotional balance. Strength also requires vulnerability, something men are rarely encouraged to practice. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the willingness to say, "This is what I'm feeling," without attaching shame to the emotion. Vulnerability builds emotional intelligence, helps men understand their triggers, and improves their ability to communicate. It allows them to show up more fully in relationships, to connect more deeply, and to handle challenges with resilience. A man who practices vulnerability becomes more grounded and less reactive because he is not constantly fighting his own emotions. He is working with them instead of working against them.